to Radical Love and Equity Work with Milta, Vega, Cardona. She has been a huge part of Minka's anti-racist and decolonial work process. For those of you who don't know Milta, she has been a long time trainer for People's Institute for Survival Beyond, have decades and decades of experience in human and health related fields. And she has been our mentor for many years on this idea of what it means to have equitable community. And with that, also, what has been a huge thing for us is that Milta actually was probably one of the first people that we have encountered where we felt very affirmed that when we say equity work is a spiritual work, that when we are talking about anti-racism and decolonial process, that in itself is a spiritual practice. So I am very, very excited to be here when we are doing a equity work. And there you are.
Yes, okay. Boy, working these electronics is really interesting, but so good to see
Sure
you.
is. Good to see you, Milta. So I just
Yes.
introduced you in terms of our history, that how we have been organizing together. First with People's Institute and you, and then now we have been working together outside of that. And really, I have also witnessed you kind of like going beyond the framework that you are working with now into something much more expansive, and how over and over what I have been struck with when I'm in your presence, especially in the training space of equity and anti-racism, which can be very charged space, which can be very tense space. You have over and over showed us what it looks like to lead with love when the conversation gets tough, and how that brings about a very different outcome when we do that. So you have been a huge mentor of mine, a huge mentor for all the people that who are part of Mika. So I just wanted to really ask you today, how do you see love in equity work? Like, it's so easy to go the other way. It's so easy to go into the blame and shame game.
Absolutely.
And not
Absolutely.
that
Yeah.
not that I don't understand that sentiment or the natural inclination to do so, because we are all feeling pain, right? When we talk about
Yeah.
this work. And so the first question is, what is love in equity work for you? And why is it radical?
Yes. Wonderful. Well, you know what, Aki? I think starting with a definition of
Yeah,
how most of us are introduced to love, right?
yeah, mm-hmm.
There's a psychological and scientific framework that we could look at.
Yeah,
We could look at a cultural and philosophical
mm-hmm.
love. And then, there's popular cultural, understanding of what love is.
Right.
Um, in looking at the definitions that are given to us about psychological and scientific love. Psychologists generally define love as a complex set of emotions,
Mm-hmm.
behaviors, and beliefs associated with strong feelings of affection and protectiveness, a warmth that's
Mm-hmm.
generated between people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's underscored by trust and respect, two very charged words, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
so,
Mm-hmm.
so these are all can be considered concepts, but they are actual living entities within us.
Yeah.
And depending on the environment that we are raised in,
Mm,
what we encounter in our younger
mm,
years, and how we evolve and
yeah.
develop. There's some stages that anthropologists talk to, Helen Fisher being one that defines three distinct brain systems, okay,
Hmm.
that occur regarding love. And she talks about lust. Okay, something
Mm-hmm.
driven by estrogen and testosterone. You
Mm,
walk into a library or a cafe, and there's some human standing across the way, and there is an immediate sense of that, I'm attracted to that human,
mm-hmm.
and there is a sensation that is
Mm,
created in my body through my brain,
mm-hmm.
and I feel an instant attraction and a drive, to get closer to that other human.
Yeah.
um so that sense of quote unquote love is driven by our instinctual to chemistry in the
Mm-hmm.
brain
Right.
that flows through our body, right?
Right.
Then
Mm-hmm.
there's just within that we go into that attraction piece, which becomes kind of like the honeymoon phase, involving high
Mm,
levels of dopamine in our brain. Uh,
mm,
it stimulates us, and it's similar to what we experience when we eat a piece of candy that delivers enough sugar to our brain that causes that causes us to really be in that euphoric stage, right?
yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's a stage that is in itself is addictive, because there are actual brain,
Right.
brain functions that are occurring and flooding our system. We feel light, we feel, we're excited, we wake up in the morning thinking about this grandiose ideology of this human, and we create a story around them, right?
Mm, mm-hmm.
um the truth is that, for those of us that have lived long enough, unfortunately, we learned that the honeymoon stage is very short-lived, right? Because in many cases, what happens is we're both entering whatever, conversation or interaction we're having, with our representative, not necessarily, all of who we are, but we send our best self to this,
Mm,
right?
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you
Right.
know and
Yeah.
through that there is an attachment process that occurs.
Mm-hmm.
We look for long-term bonding, and there are more chemicals that are attached to that,
Right.
that are produced by our brain, in order so that, and this is my belief, that in that level of love, intimacy, passion, and commitment, we
Mm,
are, actually propagating, if you are in a male female situation, the continuation of humanity, right? Because that helps
right.
us create more humans.
Mm-hmm.
If you
Right.
are in men, women, the same exact situation occurs, and then we look for other ways of propagating.
Right.
But there's still the lust, the attraction, and then the attachment, right?
Right.
So
Right.
so in this ideology, or thought pattern of love, philosophers and psychologists argue that love is not just a feeling that happens to you, but a choice or a practice, a series of intentions and actions,
Mm,
like listening, showing empathy, and supporting
mm-hmm.
another's growth, which is a
Right.
beautiful thing, right?
It really
That's kind of
is.
right. All the right things
Yeah.
seem to be, within the context of that, that framework.
Mm-hmm.
then and we could sit in that, and really talk about the intentionality of choice,
Mm-hmm.
okay, the
Yes. Right.
intentionality of empathy, and the intentionality of supporting another's growth. All of that
Yeah.
is imperative, is there are imperatives in sustaining and maintaining what we
Mm-hmm.
would consider healthy relationships
Mm-hmm.
that grow throughout time,
Mm-hmm.
and whatever challenges can come our way. Because the one thing that we never really think about is, especially when we're younger, because we're
Mm.
immortal when we're younger, and that immortality is essential to us, to us, jumping off bridges,
Right.
and taking risks. The ideology of immortality is essential to youth, and important to to sort of, spurring us forward
Right.
into experiences, right?
Right.
Um,
Right.
and all of that, I don't, I say that all of that is so essential. I can still feel my first love,
Mm-hmm.
I can still, I can still experience the importance of what that aspect of lust. I didn't know this then, but that
Yeah. Totally.
lust
Mm-hmm.
created, a bond between us and allowed
Mm-hmm.
us to break taboos in
Mm-hmm.
experiencing and exploring each other,
Yeah.
right?
You know
So
what?
that's, go ahead.
You know what that really makes me think about in terms of the equity work and love, and how, sometimes this is another example, but like when I think about parenting,
Hmm.
parenting is very counter to our survival mechanism sometimes, because in
Yes,
order for your child to become full human, you kind of have to let them go through their own version of pain and suffering. And
yes,
our job is to just kind of like support to make sure that they can navigate through,
that's right.
not alone at first, right? But the whole, in hopes that they will gain the ability to do that after we are gone, you know?
Absolutely,
So I
absolutely.
find parenting to be super um counterintuitive sometimes, because I have to hold back my urge to be like, oh, let me take care of this, like especially now in these days where we are so afraid of failures or afraid of mistakes and all these things. So let me not
Yes,
make you, let me help you so you don't make mistakes, which is counter to their growth, right?
that's right.
So that's one thing that I'm actually really thinking about. But from that perspective, we, like, as we are leading to this work, an idea of love in the equity work, like
Mm-hmm.
anti-racism and decolonial process.
Mm-hmm.
One thing stood out to me as I was watching some Instagram reel the other day, and this person, I think he's a relationship expert, but he was talking about how we are deeply unpracticed in love, that love is not dead, that we forgot what it means to practice love, that we
That's
want
right.
the comfort, we want to feel good, but we don't know what it means to be committed to the process of being able to provide that for the other person. And to
Yes,
provide that for another person, that means that we need to learn what it is that they need, and in that process we make mistakes, right? So when I was
that's right.
listening to it, I was like, wow, this is really like the love in equity work in a way. But, and not but, and that's true, we have to practice. And what I find to be probably the most challenging when we talk about love in equity space is
Mm-hmm.
that when we gather humans and we look at the deepest subconscious belief system come through in the group, which is very uncomfortable, we don't have the honeymoon phase, and we don't have the attachment to feel like we have to be committed to someone when we go into this work, right? We just kind
That's
of
right.
going in the deep end right away,
That's right. That's right.
you
That's
know?
right. Because we're coming from a place of wanting to provide, as with our children, wanting to provide all the information
Mhm.
without the intent that comes in parenthood, well, in most
Yeah.
parenthood, of safeguarding our children, and or the people that we are educating or the people that we are organizing with in,
Yeah.
anti-racist, multiracial, multicultural understanding. We come to them with a teaching mentality that is
Mm.
not necessarily connected to the compassion and the
Mm.
humanistic mentality
Mhm.
that is underscored by love, right?
Right. Mhm.
In fact, in many cases, the idea of even introducing the concept of love as justice is something that's foreign to many of the people in the movement. You
Right.
know, we will
Mhm.
hear things like, well, we have to care for people. Well, that's, yeah, we do. But the every sage that has walked this earth
Mhm.
has always pointed us to the concept of love.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
yet,
Mhm.
it is not a concept that is academic enough, okay,
Mm.
or allows for there to be a sense of, it doesn't fold into the pillars or the principles
Mhm.
of, creating communities, because in some way, and this is of course, please, people, go out, listen. If you're listening to this, do some more research, because we all have to find the place that we begin in.
Mhm.
In many ways, even in the development and organizing of communities for justice, we have our own internalized biases
Mhm.
that that distract us from seeing anyone that has a particularly different and orientation, or
Mhm.
a sense of self that comes from an anointment that may be different to us,
Right.
right? So
Yeah.
considering all of that, it's like having multiple children, and we become very attached to our first, our third, and our last, and somewhere in the middle, the middle child gets lost. There's a lot of work that has been done, in
Yeah.
sociology and psychology about the middle child, right? The middle child always kind of gets lost, and I see it in my own family with my sister, who, is always saying, I'm here, you guys are forgetting me. And in many cases, it is clear, between my sisters and I, we say, but we're not forgetting you. But it doesn't matter, because she feels forgotten. She feels
Right.
unloved. Okay.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
so the philosophy and types of love in cultural love, okay, and I'm
Mhm.
looking at, and I'm thinking of the ideology behind ancient Greek types of love, okay.
Mm.
There
Mhm.
is eros, okay, romantic and sexual love. That's that. Oh my God, I just met somebody. It doesn't, whatever your preference is, I just saw somebody and I just have to own
Mm.
them physically, own them, I
Mhm.
have to partake of them, and I want them to partake of me.
Right.
Um, Philia, deep friendship or platonic love, which is what creates sisterhoods, right? And
Mm.
brotherhoods and connection
Mhm.
to other humans that we don't have the eros attraction to, but we do
Mhm.
have the parental protection,
Right.
okay, and
Mhm.
want for them to, to be, we want to have the access to them, and we want them to have the access to us, and we
Mhm.
sustain, that by, intense revelations of ourselves. We tell on ourselves, in filial love, we tell people who we are, we tell them where we are, we tell them what we are, right?
Mhm.
Then
Mhm.
you know then there is a side step to that, which is called storage love. Okay, storage love is the familial love, the brother,
Mm,
sister, parent, child, um, love that in many ways is is somewhat distorted by our by what we have internalized,
mm,
be it our relationships with our own parents and our own siblings, bloodline, um, that gets transferred
mm,
into our parental, the way that we enter into relationship with our children, and how that parenting is developed. Now, I want to sidestep for a minute because I think that what you stated about how the concept of us not practicing love
yeah.
resonated with you. As you said it, it resonated with me because,
Mm.
as everything, practice makes perfect, right? We're never 100% when we start something.
Yeah.
There the other kinds of love that are about somewhat, okay, about having access to the other human,
Mm-hmm.
are loves that for us, okay, create a certain amount of interactive dependency, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm,
so,
mm,
we set up contracts and agreements, whether verbalized or not. In our heads, we
mm,
have this drama that's going on, right? Um,
mm,
I think organizing love, which is what
mm-hmm.
I call radical love, is the
Mm-hmm.
kind of love that we share with our children and expand it,
Mm, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Because within the context of radical love for the humans, in this world, no matter who they are,
Yeah.
has to come from a place of unconditional, selfless, uh, compassion that entails love for the other's humanity and or their divine self,
Right. Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
and so, although I believe it's similar to our parent-child love, and you don't have to birth a child to have child. We know that,
Right.
whenever we take on the parenting, caregiver, process, we are in fact entering into, contractual agreement with that other human to protect them, to educate them, to sustain them, to assure that they have their basic needs met, and in many
Mm-hmm.
cases more, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, agape love, as the Greeks talk about it, is that unconditional, selfless love for all humanity, and within the concept of humanity is their
Mm-hmm.
divine self, that
Yeah.
all humans have a divine self,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And that we
Yeah.
are all in process, and we're all in development, and that
Mm-hmm.
we're all also, somewhat, tarred, by our environment, by what's been poured into us, by what has been, allowed of us.
Mm-hmm.
And in a country like the
Mm-hmm.
United States, where we divide children based on their capacity, and we anoint, certain children with certain capacity, and other children without. And just to be very explicit, if you are anointed white, you're anointed, a child with probability and possibility. If you're anointed
Mhm.
on the other side of this, binary black, then you are anointed with less than capacity, and even a sense that we have to be weary of you.
Mm.
That's how
Mhm.
we could have the tragedies that we see ongoing in this country, where we have a 9-year-old playing in a park with a make-believe gun, and the police is called, and the police shoot him dead
Mhm.
because they didn't
Right.
see a child. They didn't see a
Mhm.
9-year-old child. What they saw in their head was probably, a grown human, okay, that pause, a probable, attack on them.
Mhm. Mhm.
But yet we know that it
Yeah.
was a 9-year-old child. And this has
Yeah.
been ongoing in the history of the United States, and our lack of understanding, because of our, of the influence of how we are acculturated, and
Mhm.
we internalize the lack of value for some,
Mhm.
and the ultimate value of capacity, and beauty and knowledge to others, even when it's falsely given, and
Yeah.
and truly, provided simply by concept, rather than by any proof that there is actual, greatness there, right?
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
so in the language of love, right, popularized by Gary Chapman, this framework suggests that people give and receive love in 5 specific ways.
Mm.
Okay. True love comes with words of affirmation,
Mm.
right? Acts of service,
Mhm.
receiving and providing support, okay, which can be seen as gifts, okay?
Mhm.
Acts of investment of time.
Mhm.
In our Western society, time is such a, it's so interesting, we have Western time, and then we have universal time, right? Celestial time. They're not the same. They're
No.
not the
Mhm.
same, right?
No.
Um,
Mhm.
you know, um, but in the provision of quality of time, which means that in the midst of a conversation with someone about about racism, and what racism is, what inequality is, what oppression is,
Mhm.
we okay, if we perceive ourselves as the scholars, the educators, the trainers, the givers of, the furthering of knowledge, then we have to take the time to
Mhm.
allow for those in front of us to be able to absorb, and hold what we're giving them, as they are letting go and mourning the loss of that they believed.
Mhm.
Just and just thinking about that, okay? Radical love is about letting go of, being on the agenda and checking off the boxes,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
And moving
Mhm.
through the dialogue, because we have to get to the next space. You've heard me say many times that, yes, I have an agenda, but the agenda is actually the people in front of me,
Yeah.
because they're going to move the conversation. I'm just a curator. I'm just a curator, but I enter into the room with humans that are not empty vessels. They
Mhm.
come with their knowledge and capacity and experiences and loss and falseness and everything that I come with.
Right.
Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
that level of defining, what quality time is not just on individual relationships, but within the context of how we enter any organizing space, because that is love. When I
Yeah.
can step back and have a realization that there is someone in the room, no matter what their race anointment is. Because let's
Mm-hmm.
get clear, we, okay, as people of color, can be loud and wrong, okay? you we had an experience, and that's what we got, and that's what we're bringing, and we're just gonna spread it all over everybody. And in many cases, this is like that child that keeps crying and going, "Mommy, mommy, mommy, daddy, 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 mommy, 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 daddy, daddy, daddy," you know, and fill us with anguish, right? What? What is it that you want from me? And all they want us to do is see them. I
Mm-hmm.
see you. I hear
Mm-hmm.
you. Okay. And then not what is wrong with you, but what happened. Tell me your story. Tell me your
Mm-hmm.
story.
Mm-hmm.
That's love in action. And that's
You know, that
radical love.
actually that actually really makes me think about, I always think love equates to curiosity, because when we love someone, that we want to know what makes them tick, right? Like, I was
Yes.
having conversation with Baba the other day, and he was asking me, what do I do when I'm encountering with an individual or a group of people who behaving in a way that I don't agree with, right? Do I just like throw them out, or what do you do, is what he said. So I
Mm-hmm.
said, people are so concerned with bells and whistles these days, the surface
Yeah.
level expression of who they are. And sure, I am interested in that too, but what I'm really interested in, because I want to live my life in love and with love, not
Yes.
something else. and
Yes.
and that's actually my practice, and I'm committed to that. Then when I'm coming with that, then the question I ask to them is like, okay, that's your experience and that's how you are doing things. Tell me why. Tell me the guiding principle that
Yes.
that brought you to this place, because I'm deeply curious, because I don't have that experience you are, and we don't have to, because I'm not you and you're not me.
That's
And
right.
I want you to explain to me what brought you to this place. And then I get to actually see the human inside of it, not the
Yes.
surface, not the
Yes.
performance, not the
Yes.
labels. And to me, curiosity and love is so deeply intertwined.
Yes.
And when we are curious, we realize that we can't throw them away. So I
That's
think
right.
this idea of cancel culture, especially in
Mm-hmm.
these spaces of activism, which is
Mm-hmm.
unfortunate, but that's happening, right?
Right.
Um, I feel like it's getting better, but it's still happening. I think cancel culture is also counter to being curious,
That's right.
because you actually stepped away from the agape kind of love, that
That's right.
you are human, having human experience. I might not like you, but I love you because you're
That's right.
human, and I want to honor you. I want to build relationship with you, you know?
That's right. That's right.
Um,
That's right.
so in some ways though, from what you are saying, all of it, this kind of love in organizing space or equity workspace have the potential to be the highest form of love.
That's right. That's right. That's right. And that is what well, to use that concept of, will cancel the othering.
Mm-hmm.
Because as soon as I enter into a committed conversation with you, committed, okay,
Mm-hmm.
I'm honestly curious, all
Mm-hmm.
right, that's a commitment. My
Yeah.
curiosity causes for me to be committed, right?
Yeah.
We've made the choice to go beyond the surface dialogue and
Mm-hmm.
ask the questions. And I think it's very important to understand that the questions have to be appropriately framed. So in many cases, we ask people, what's wrong with you? How could you think that way?
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
And
Uh-huh.
immediately that shuts down the conversation. But
Yeah.
when we ask, what happened?
Yeah.
What happened that brought you to this place, to
Yeah.
this way of thinking and existing? There
Mm-hmm.
is what actually happens is that in the brain opens up and says, "Oh, yes, there is a story that I
Mm-hmm.
can share with you." And
Mm-hmm.
now I'm present to my own story, and I sense that you are present to me because you
Mm-hmm.
see me, and
Mm-hmm.
I can take the risk of sharing that story.
Yeah.
And the commitment is that no matter what the story is, I am never going to be less valued,
Yeah.
because the story is what has caused the experience that brings about the action and behavior that I am
Exactly.
conducting, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
So, you know, the idea that we, first of all, here in the United States, we
Yeah.
are as confused about the love as we are about racism or race. Right? You ask someone what is love, they're going to give you 100 people you ask what is love, they're going to give you 100 different, ideas
Mm-hmm.
or thoughts about is love. Just like
Mm-hmm.
if when I ask people in our trainings what is race, they give me all kinds of things that have absolutely nothing to do with race, but that's what they think and they
Right.
believe and they have
Yeah.
had an experience about that. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that one of the things that is important that we do, and that's that we begin to really, start our conversations with people with a commitment to stay present and stay the whole time.
Yeah.
And that we are going to commit to that with, and ask them to commit to the same as long as we are in the space of embracing their humanity,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and that's huge, because those are all words for "I'm gonna love you through this. I'm
Yeah.
gonna love you through this," you know?
Yeah.
And it provides these alternative words until people get comfortable enough to be able to use the word love.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Which is it as strange to me as it is, love is definitely not the word that's being used around often in equity work.
Right.
And people make it seem like it's such a new idea or something. Like when I talk about consciousness of radical equity, which Milta is teaching history of race. um
Right.
and people look at me like, wow. I mean, I've heard something like, wow, this is a very audacious program, or like, wow,
Uh-huh.
this is quite radical, because
Yeah.
we talk about the three pillars of equity, spirituality, and embodiment. And
Uh-huh.
love is what connects that through, because we love, we want to make sure that um everybody have a same level of access to the goodness that
Right.
we have on this planet Earth, right? That's the equity.
Right.
Spirituality is the love that we can understand the interconnectedness between each beings, so that we can actually understand this is love. And embodiment is the practice of love, because we are not practicing love, especially when it's interpersonal, right? We want to
Right.
shut away, we want to pull away, we want to withdraw, we want to fight. We don't have practice in being present, being grounded, and committed to the
Yeah.
people that's around us, you know?
Yes.
So
Yes.
when people say that's audacious or that's radical, I was like, but I mean, have you heard of Martin Luther King? Have you heard of Malcolm X? Have you heard of Thich Nhat Hanh? Have you heard of Gandhi? Have you heard of Toni Morrison? Have you heard? I'm just kind of like, have you heard of James Baldwin? Have you heard of Grace Lee Boggs? I'm just so dumbfounded when people say this is something new,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah,
And
yeah.
I realize that humans are not good when it's not put it into codified package, you
Yes.
know?
Mm.
And I totally
Yeah.
understand that. Um, and you know, what I'm really thankful for is that you being the example for us, for many of us, you've been in this training space for a long time to really show up embodied. And it's such a testament to your spiritual practice that you
Mm.
yourself is a priestess of
Hmm.
Lukumi. Did I say
Yes.
this wrong?
Yes.
Practice,
Santeria.
right?
Look at me, Santeria. Yes.
Lukumi Santeria practice.
Uh-huh.
And
Hmm.
how that, even if it's in the surface, put it out there, as a front facing or not, if
Hmm. Hmm.
anybody have sat in a training with you, that is felt, that deep rooted trust in the interconnectedness of who we are, that's unshakable, that when you show up. And I'm
Thank you.
just beyond excited that that's what you can bring to the space of this training,
Yeah.
it is such a rare gift.
Yeah. I thank you. I am so clear that our commitment to each other, okay, and our commitment to the work is exactly what we came here to do. In my practice, in my spiritual practice, they say that we are, we come here with a mission. We all do.
Hmm.
And every practice that I have ever investigated, every spiritual practice always talks about that we're here to do something, right?
Yeah.
Um, it is, in my practice, they talk about the importance of our meeting our spiritual group members that have also incarnated so that we can support each other.
Hmm.
That's a commitment that we make in the sphere of for lack of a better word, of the heavenly beings. We commit
Hmm.
to come back and find each other so that we can
Hmm.
do this work together. There is, there is no justice without love. There isn't. There is no justice without love. I was just reading Dr. King's speech and just reviving with it. Um,
Hmm.
at the time, I was very young and very new.
Hmm.
you know um, and I remember, how that speech became such an important part of the movement towards justice. And I
Hmm.
also am very clear that his nonviolent commitment, okay, was because he understood what love meant. And
Yes.
if we are truly in committed, relationship with the people that we are organizing with, then, and we see them as valuable and we see them as an extension of who we are, then we cannot commit, harm on them. But that
Hmm.
also extends to the people that oppose us. And I think that that's the deepest part of this, and it's the hardest part. Aki, when someone comes at you and they are spewing all this pain on you, our instinctual response is to push back,
Yeah.
and then
Hmm.
to protect ourselves, right?
Yep. Hmm.
But there's a higher level of who we are when we mature our practice of anti-racism, anti-oppression, when we
Hmm.
mature that through study, through commitment to each other, through being in accountable relationships, we then start to, really number one, we attract as much of our Igbe, which is what we call in Lucame Santeria and Ifa practice, our spiritual group,
Mm.
um, for protection and capacity building. And we
Yeah.
also gain the benefit of that knowledge to be able to support our interactions with
Mhm.
those that least agree with us. You see, it doesn't matter how much we continue to speak to those that agree with us. That's not
Mhm.
going to change anything. That is
Mhm.
not going to change anything. The reason why we speak to people that agree with us is so that we could continue to develop leadership.
Right.
Okay.
And
But our
also
job,
resource ourselves.
exactly, exactly.
Right.
But our
Yeah.
job is to assure that we have the capacity to be able to sit in the hard conversations with those that don't agree with us,
Mhm.
and in so
Mhm.
doing, there's so much that happens in these human bodies to support us, right?
Yeah.
If we commit, okay, if we start off the relationship with a sense of commitment to be curious, as you said, okay, and
Mhm.
to be forthcoming.
Mhm.
Right? I don't understand what this means to you. I know what it means to
Yeah.
me, but I don't. Can you explain that? That almost signals the brain to move into the lust place. Okay. The initial stage of, wanting
Mm.
to, to
Mm.
further, see
Mm.
and feel, this other human.
Wow.
Then
Wow.
the brain starts to, if you're a human that is in woman form, then the estrogen starts to flow, okay, which is a primary sex hormone, right? It fuels
Right.
your
Wow.
initial drive to want to get deeper, and I know that some people will think that, oh my God, are you kidding me? What are you talking about, lady? The truth is that we never function outside of our existing human body. This is where
Right.
we are. So there are things that are going to work, within our, that the brain is able to, to access in our bloodstream, that will stimulate our body and our capacity building. Okay. That moves us into the attraction phase, that honeymoon phase, right? Almost
That
love struck.
that's like I have to say I have experienced that in um I have to say I experienced I think that's what you were saying in the anti-racism space before.
Yes.
And now you're putting
Yes.
words into it because that now tells me this is so it's like my biggest aha right now because you know how we have just talked about the lust and that kind of love, and it almost is this like automatic attraction
Mm-hmm.
that you have
Mm-hmm.
with this person that you see, right?
Right.
But what
Right.
you are saying now is by committing to each other and by staying curious and inviting them into your space and your care, you can actually start that lustful,
Yes.
that bonding experience even if
Yes.
you don't like them.
That's right. I think you have heard me say, I don't have to like you to love you, okay?
Yeah,
And
over and
to
over.
organize with you.
And another one that you actually often said, which struck me so much over and over, is that are you going to love me when you really see me?
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And that is essential to how we then move, from attraction to attachment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because in
Mm-hmm.
attraction, okay, we're still kind of walking around each other. It's the honeymoon phase. Oh wow,
Right.
how smart she is. We're falling in love with their brain. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, she said the right thing. They said the right thing. He said the right thing. Whatever it is, right? It is,
Right.
it is, and it's in many cases is the representative that is standing in front of us.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of chemistry that's happening. Dopamine, okay, adrenaline, okay,
Mm-hmm.
serotonin, cortisol, all of that it is happening inside of you. Okay. This
Right.
is happening while you're organizing. This is happening while you're teaching your class. This is happening while, while you are interacting with your students, and all of a sudden this student just all of a sudden seems to shine, and you're going like, oh wow,
Yeah.
I never noticed them before, but oh my God, they're great, right? That is the
Yeah.
attraction phase, as in
Wow.
relationships, right? But
Wow. Yeah.
the attachment phase is the phase that brings us, into the intimacy, into me you see phase,
Mhm.
which is the
Mhm.
phase where we're no longer just dependent on the good feeling, but we are taking risks in the relationship to mature it. Okay.
Mhm.
So there's a
Mhm.
high intensity of, wanting to learn more, of
Yeah.
sharing more, of being
Yeah.
able to be oppositional without fearing you're going to lose, the person in front of you. And
Mhm.
the brain is still working towards this. Okay, the brain
Mhm.
is giving you some, oxytocin, okay, which is what they call it, the cuddle hormone. Okay.
Mhm.
It's for you to foster more trust and to feel more secure and to have some emotional bonding. Okay. The
Mhm.
brain is also linking you, okay, and linking, other commitments that you have had, so that you can pair, okay, in this bonding process.
Mhm.
And I know that people think that, oh no, doesn't make any sense because, we're talking about mass human beings. Listen, people, mass human beings is one individual at a time, and no human being deserves to be thrown away.
Mhm. Yeah. And that
Okay.
is the radical love.
That's it. That's
That
it.
is the radical love. So
And
we've
in
been on
that
this for a
attach
while. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, in that attachment phase, when we find commonality with each other, even with people that we didn't think we could find anything, okay?
Yeah.
But we
Right.
find some commonality there, we move from the place of, the othering to the place of attachment, and that attachment creates, well, that's what creates the wave. All right,
Mhm.
because now we see that those concepts that we hear all the time, they start to have fillers, they start to, to have more texture. All right,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
my freedom cannot come on its own, because it's connected to your freedom.
Yeah.
My good, my good standing is connected to your good standing. My, capacity building is connected to your capacity building.
Yeah.
So every time that I move forward, you move forward. Every time you move forward, I move forward.
Yeah.
And so we go from the ultimate, Western I to the we.
Yeah.
That's radical.
That is radical. And it's love that we at the end of the day all crave to feel.
Absolutely.
No matter who we
Absolutely.
are, no matter what kind of side you're on,
Mm-hmm.
humans are not that
Absolutely.
complicated in my opinion. I think we just want to feel safe, we want to be loved, right? And we want to be affirmed for our particular existence.
Yes.
I
Yes,
think
yes,
that's
yes.
all we want at the end of the day. And we do a lot of other things to make sure that can happen. However, I think when we're talking about radical love and equity work, I think that really gets to the bottom of it, the center of it, the essence of it. And that's why I really love hearing you speak on it. And for those of you who don't know why we are here, we are talking about this with Milta, radical love in a space of equity work, because that we are inviting folks into the container called the consciousness of radical equity leadership training. And this is for anyone from any sector who wants to see the new reality and oftentimes I now talk about it as like, we all know we live in a particular kind of matrix. We do know that.
That's right.
Right
That's right.
now, we are at a phase where we are creating a different kind of matrix based
That's
upon
right.
this principle of equity, spirituality, and embodiment. Hopefully, that's what we want to create, right? So we are basically gathering more people to be able to do that together. This
That's right.
is leadership training, but this is community building. This is a place of resourcing with each other so we can feel like we can do it because we are not alone, because we know we can't make a matrix by ourselves.
Nope.
So it's starting on January 20th. We have many access points. If you need support, we have, scholarships for people. We have payment plans. We have even work exchange program. And if you are in a part of organizations, reach out to us because we can also create a rate specific for organizations too, because we need more people to speak the same language to make changes in a particular sector, right? I was so excited because last night I was talking to someone who works in economic policy advocacy, a policy analyst wanting to do this work.
That's
I'm
right.
like, like I thought I was going to have an orgasm.
You see, that's love, baby. That's your body
That's love.
reacting to the
I
love.
felt the lust. I felt the lust.
Yes.
And so, like, this goes to show you this is not only people who consider themselves super spiritual or working only in spirituality. No, if you're human, you're spiritual. I don't,
That's right.
you know, you can believe in anything or you don't have to believe in anything.
That's
But
right.
if you believe in the interconnectedness of who we are, if you are so tired of being pit against one another, and if you want to come together so we can really love one another to create something new, then this is the spot.
That's right.
And Milta's
That's
going to
right.
be in it.
Oh, I'm so happy to have had this discussion with you, Aki. This is just wonderful. I hope that we can, continue to explore the areas in which we have the opportunity to step into radical love, because I am so committed to the work that we're doing together.
Yeah. And thank
I'm
you
gonna have
so
to.
much.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
thank
excuse.
you so much for, oops.
Sorry. Yes.
No, it's fine. I just want to thank you for years and years and years of dedication
I have been
to,
very full. Excuse. Sorry. Yeah,
it's
I've had
okay.
this bad cough for weeks now, but I
Yeah.
gotta tell you that I am not only honored, but I am, extremely pleased to be able to be here and be a part of this movement forward. So I think my voice is now gone.
Yes, it is. So I'm going to let you go and rest your vocal cord, and just want to give you so much thanks for years of dedication that you have given to this movement, and continue to inspire us to keep going. So
Thank you. Thank you.
thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. Mwah. I'll talk to you
Love you.
soon.
Bye.
Adios. Bye.